up, everybody? Welcome back to On the Warpath. It's Sanchez 405. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you click that subscribe button. Hit the bell so you get notifications anytime there's new content posted. And as always, like, comment, share this video out because we're talking Washington football team all the time. And today we've got another special guest here, the voice of Navy Athletics. The cohort to Chris Russell on Russell and Medhurst, and just an all-around good guy. Pete Medhurst joins us. And Pete, how are you doing, my friend?
Corey, I'm doing great. Appreciate you having me.
I appreciate you coming on here. And it is the dead period, pretty much. We've got 6 weeks of, I guess you can call it purgatory for football fans and DC sports fans in general. The Nationals aren't too hot. The Capitals and the Wizards are done. But who knows? Scott Brooks will still have a job at the end of the day. So, but we're not here to talk to throw shade on those guys. But we'll dive right into it. And the first thing, I think, mandatory OTAs, there were a lot of flashes, a lot of bang, but the biggest storyline, it seemed like, was Chase Young finally showing up to off-season organized team activities. So I'll just ask you that. Was it a big deal that he missed voluntary OTAs?
I don't think so. I think we're in a completely different climate in 2021. If this was 1985 or 1990 even, yeah, we make a big deal out of it. But players' voices carry a lot more weight right now in 2021. I think last year showed us we can still put good NFL product on the field with less work on the field, so to speak. In other words, the violence that these guys undertake between the start of training camp and the end of the Super Bowl is tremendous, considering the speed and the size of the athletes that we're talking about now that play this wonderful sport. So from that standpoint, you know, I think we prove that we can do just as much to have a quality product. So Chase not being there, not a big deal to me. And as long as he shows up for training camp and plays the way he's supposed to on September the 12th, then I think we'll find out that him not being there really doesn't matter a whole lot. It's on him to make sure he shows up September 12th ready to perform for the first of 17 games and then hopefully longer than that.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of interesting that folks kind of made a big deal about it, and it might be because he was the only player who didn't show up for any mandatories. But I thought it showed a little bit of maturity from him that he went out there and he was very forthcoming to what he was doing, and that he stayed in contact with Ron, Jack, and I'm assuming Sam Mill III, his position coach. But I think that speaks a lot to his maturity and why he wears that C on his patch, because like you said, it is a new day in the world and with leadership from that standpoint.
You answer to the people inside your locker room. You answer to the people that you play alongside. They are ultimately the ones that are the judge and jury here. They'll be the ones that will tell you as a player, hey, we don't think you're pulling your weight. Mm-hmm. And Chase understands that. He played in a big time. Look, this guy's been playing big time football for a long time. I mean, you go back to the time he's playing, at DeMatha. A lot is expected of you there. You put the DeMatha uniform on, there is a certain quality that you are expected to aspire to and perform like. So this is a guy that understands when you put that uniform on, you're doing it for more than just yourself. You're doing it for the people that you're playing alongside, because they will be the first ones that call you out. And those are the loudest voices in terms of calling you out. And no player wants that to happen to them inside their locker room.
Yeah, I feel like, and you've got a lot of accountable voices in there. You think about John Allen is like one of the first people that come to mind to me when I think about that. So kind of, and Pete, I'm in a moral dilemma right now. There is another quarterback controversy in Washington brewing. Surprise. We kind of make it up in our head. Ryan Fitzpatrick, Taylor Heineke, Ryan Fitzpatrick, we've seen him. I always say I liken it to the movie Pulp Fiction. Marvin gets shot in the head. That's shocking the first time. After the second, third time, I know what's going to happen. the shock factor is gone. So I see that with Fitzpatrick. And then you have one-hit wonders. So, we've got Macy Gray. And so I tried to lean on Taylor Heineke. At the end of the day, do you think this is do you think there's going to be a quarterback competition, or is this Ron's fodder? And if so, where does this rank among DC quarterback controversies of all time?
So in terms of all time, I don't think it really amounts to much yet, because one guy wasn't even on the team last year, and another guy barely was on the team. I mean, this was a guy that, Taylor Heineke wasn't even in the league until late in the season. Denver had the quarterback issue they had where everybody got COVID in the room. Teams started looking around going, hey, we maybe need to have an emergency quarterback who's not at the facility, a guy that's isolating already. That way, if we do end up in this situation where we get all three guys wiped out because they were in the same room, we've got a guy that wasn't in contact with them who could play a game in an emergency, so we don't have what happened in Denver. Look, what Heineke did was in one game was stuff of legendary proportions, but he didn't win the game. He gave a heroic performance, but he didn't win the game, okay? Yes. He got close, but he didn't win the game. Ryan Fitzpatrick last year had the Dolphins on point to make the playoffs until organizational malfeasance. I mean, they committed a felony by taking him out at that point. It almost made me think, like, we don't want to make the playoffs. We want to get another good draft pick for another year. Because, I mean, look how close they were. And it was clear that Tua was not playing at the same level that Ryan Fitzpatrick was. So I thought it was organizational felony on the part of the Dolphins to take him out. Ryan Fitzpatrick played some of his best football last year. Will it be a competition? I do believe it will, because Ron said, look, the biggest mistake I made last year was not really having a real competition for that job and basically anointing Dwayne Haskins as the quarterback. I do believe Ryan Fitzpatrick is QB1. I believe he can come back to the pack if his performance regresses in training camp and Heineke's continues to ramp forward the way it did. Then maybe that competition gets closer than we think. But clearly, I think it's Fitzpatrick is QB1. It's his job to lose. But as we've seen in the past, players do lose jobs, and eventually, new heroes are created.
Yeah, all the time. And I'll ask you this too. Do you think Kyle Allen will wiggle his way into the conversation?
Hard to see that right now. We don't know how healthy he is coming back from the gruesome injury that he had. And right now, you would think just on health alone and the ability to do things in the offseason from a workout perspective, that Fitzpatrick and Heineke are probably a little bit ahead of him at this point. But again, you never count athletes out, because these are the best of the best. These are men that take their craft incredibly seriously at this sport. They'll do anything they can to make sure they get back on the field with an ability to compete. Kyle, I believe, certainly this coaching staff knows him. They spent a 5th-round draft pick to acquire him. So I believe that, they feel a sense of obligation, but more importantly, I think he does as well. And he'll do whatever he can to make himself a factor and a presence in that quarterback room as well. You just hope that he's able to come back from that type of injury, because it was an injury, where he was, hustling, trying to make a big play for his team. And you hate to see a guy end up losing the possibility to compete because of an injury like that.
Yeah, I think you're right there. And, as far as I was looking at this, some reason when I think of the controversy, this eerily reminds me of Rex Grossman and John Beck. I don't know. And I might be crazy in thinking that, but it just seems in the back of my mind, I can't get that out of my head. Is just saying, like, this just gives me those creepy vibes. But you know what? I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna stay. I'm gonna hold on.
Remember though, in that one, Mike Shanahan was the one that loved John Beck because Mike felt he could take any quarterback virtually, or any running back at that time, and make them a star. He liked the things that John Beck showed him in workouts and in practices, and in terms of the skill set when you're just dropping back in shorts and a helmet and some shoulder pads or whatever. As soon as the other team gets out there and wants to knock your block off, the game becomes completely different at that point. So I think that in terms of Heineke, the fans love Heineke.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if the organization's internal love for the player is as big as it was with Mike Shanahan's in terms of John Beck. But the fans, we know the fans were certainly in love with the 4-car because of his heroics in that Tampa Bay game.
Well, I know they loved him because he wasn't going out there with coach having cancer and messing around with glitter, unlike another quarterback. I won't touch that. But I just look, when training camp comes, this is what we need to do. We need to get Rooster down there, get the big green egg, and he can go out there and he can have a Team 980 Russell and Medhurst tailgate right there. I think that'd be pretty good. So, but we're gonna have to drop that line on Chris. But
we have to get him a truck so he can haul that big green egg down to Richmond. We'll get him to bring the big green egg. We'll get Tailgate Ted, and we'll have a big congregation down there, either somewhere in Ashburn or somewhere in Richmond. While there is a training camp going on.
Yeah, burnt ends galore. And talking about training camp, what matchups are you looking forward to, or what position is like, this is pretty good? What burnt ends are you looking at for the training camp position?
Burnt ends are tasty. They're good. They're outstanding to consume, and the quality of burnt ends would describe the wide receiver position right now, because for the first time in a while, this organization is going to cut players that are good players. That hasn't happened a lot around here in recent years. This roster at that position in particular, you're going to have guys that get the blade that will find a job fairly quickly somewhere else. A couple of key things here is whether they keep 6 or whether they keep 7. Does one of them, and I talk in this case maybe 7th round pick Dax Milne, who has the ability to go back there and return punts as well. Remember, that's a position they're trying to solidify. So if you can do that, if you can serve 2 different positions being one body, you enhance your opportunity to make the club. Cam Sims, many people don't realize that he's a great special teams player as well. And his emergence last year as a wide receiver, he really took a real big step forward for this club. And during these OTAs with Curtis Samuel out, Cam was essentially lining up with the ones opposite Terry McLaurin. So it shows you how far Cam has come and how much confidence they really have and the work that Cam has put in. And I think Cam is a hell of a story. Played at Alabama, where there have been unbelievable wide receivers, this decade. Some put up bigger numbers than others. But I do believe when you get an Alabama product in your football room, that product is better equipped to play pro football than a lot of others that are out there. And it's a testament to Cam's perseverance here, where, he's been on the practice squad, off, released, and back, and things of that nature. A lot of guys will take that personal and go pout and go away. In this case, Cam simply put his nose to the grindstone, continued to work hard, and he put himself in a position where they couldn't cut him anymore. And those are the kind of football players you want to have on your team. A guy that gets knocked down but gets back up again and is ready to roll. And that's the impressive thing about Cam Sims. Dudes get cut all the time and go cry to everybody why they didn't make the team. And, it's the coach's fault. And you got people in your ear going, oh, man, they don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're doing by cutting you. Cam simply, continued to work and put himself in a position where ultimately he gained their confidence. And I think he's got, whether it's here or somewhere else, he's always going to have a job now over the next few years in the National Football League.
He's a grinder for sure. And so you kind of lead into my next question, and I got to mark off Cam Sims, or I might keep him on here. So I'm going to give you 5 players, 5 vets that may or may not be on the chopping block, and do they make the roster at the end of training camp? This is I'll throw you a softball here because I think I know your answer. Landon Collins.
At the start of the season, I don't know if or at least training camp, he might be on the PUP. I think the question is going to become is just how when you have the type of injury that he had with the Achilles, it's such a wild card in how fast you come back. Some guys, it takes a full year to get back. So he may be a candidate to start the season on the PUP list for them, unless, he pushes it to the point where he can get back out there and show them that he's okay. I think he's going to be on the roster in some capacity. It's either going to be as an active player or on the PUP list. I don't believe he will get released unless a couple of these other kids that they have around just simply outperform him here in camp with what they're trying to do.
Yeah, and we'll stick in the secondary here. Troy Apke, who it seems like he has the longest leash because of his speed, and he's been playing a little bit of cornerback. But then again, he's putting Chris in business again, burnt ends, and Oliveira back in business. Do you think this is the end of the line for Mr. Apke?
Look, he's playing corner. They moved him to corner because they feel right now that's his best area to make the team. Safety depth has been enhanced here in the offseason. So the question is can he adapt fast enough? Look, he can run. That's the first thing you need out of a corner. Second thing, he's good on special teams. So he provides opportunity there. So that's another way for him to sneak his way onto the club at this point. Ron said he thinks there's still room for him to grow at the position. Some of the early returns were well received in how he did that. Certainly there were moments against the quality of wide receivers he's working against where, he looked like a guy that was moving back to the corner position and got toasted a little bit. But that's part of that growth process that Ron is talking about. And again, his ability to contribute on teams is huge here and gives him a chance to make the roster. Will he be a significant player at corner early in the season? I don't believe so, because I think Benjamin St. Juste is the real deal. So at best right now, you're talking about Troy behind, William Jackson III, Kendall Fuller, Benjamin St. Juste, and Jimmy Moreland. So at minimum, you're talking maybe the fifth guy at the position, and ultimately how many guys they overall carry in that secondary will determine his fate.
Yeah, and I'll give you two wide receivers, Steve Sims Jr., Kelvin Harmon.
Love Harmon, loved him at NC State. You throw the ball anywhere near him, he's like Spider-Man. He catches the football. And look, I don't care. Jerry Rice proved, because if you go back and look at Jerry Rice's measurables and speed and all that stuff when he came out of Mississippi Valley State, he wasn't a blazer in a straight line. He wasn't getting on the line and running a 4.29 or 4.31 40. But whenever you threw Jerry Rice the football, Jerry Rice caught the football. Okay, that's always the first requisite of playing wide receiver. Can you catch the football? Kelvin Harmon can do that. So far at the OTAs now, he's looked okay. The knee has looked good. How he responds now after this to make sure he doesn't have any swelling or anything like that, as long as he doesn't have any setbacks, I think Kelvin challenges for a job. His size, his ability to catch the football, college production was terrific. His 30 catches we already saw in 1 year here has shown production from the player. Steven Sims Jr., his biggest problem is catching the football and holding on to it and catching punts. Here's a guy that had an opportunity to certainly be a blazer in the punt return game. But his career reminds me a lot of Brandon Banks, because here's a guy that could flat out in a straight line, he can go. Right. And it's not that he doesn't work hard. That's not the issue. It's simply a matter of having his two hands consistently catch the football. Otherwise, he checks off all the other boxes you're looking for at both of those positions. Eventually, Brandon went to Canada and had a heck of a career as a wide receiver and a return man. It was just deadly in that game on the Canadian side. I think Steven Sims has a role in the National Football League. I don't doubt that. But the fact that they've gone out and gotten some other people in here pushes him, down that list a little bit further, whether it's here or somewhere else. I think Steven Sims can play in the league. The ultimate question is you're only going to keep 6, maybe 7 tops if a couple of these guys can play on teams. I just wonder if Steven Sims doesn't get caught up in a numbers game, unfortunately, at the start of the season.
Yeah, I think you got a point here. And we're getting close to time here, so I've got 2 more questions for you, and I'll let you go. The key thing about last year was Cam Curl. Mm-hmm. Rookies played a key part. Is there a diamond in the rough on this in this rookie class that you're like, this kid's going to step up and can be comparable to Cam Curl and what he did last year.
I go back to the later rounds of the draft. See, I think St. Juste is a proven commodity, so I wouldn't call him the diamond in the rough. That's why I wouldn't use him. I think Benjamin St. Juste is a good player. I go to the bottom of the draft. Now I look at Shaka Toney, the kid out of Penn State. I think he's got a chance to be a factor and be a contributor. And I think Dax Milne does too, because I saw Dax Milne in person last year. We played BYU,
right,
and I saw a lot of their games, so I've seen a ton of Dax Milne. He's another guy that's not afraid to go catch the football over the middle, slants, crossings, you name it. And he's got the ability to go back there and catch punts. He may be a guy at the beginning of the season that his only role is potentially catching punts. But I think he's a guy that eventually down the road, he may eventually slide into that Adam Humphries role that they're asking Adam to play this year. I could certainly see Milne being someone that eventually moves in. But what a great way for him to learn from a veteran in that capacity. I think Toney and I think Milne at the end of the draft could be guys. They may not contribute a ton early, but I think they will contribute early in some capacities. I mean, let's face it, when you've got, Chase Young and Montez Sweat, how many snaps are you going to get out there on the football field, barring an injury?
Man, you didn't give any love to my man, William Bradley King, the only guy I got right on my mock draft. So I'm a little hurt.
Look, but hey, he's going to look with what's happened. He's got a chance to contribute. I liken him a little bit to just like James Smith Williams, the kid out of NC State last year. You go back and you look at Smith Williams' career. Highly recruited high school guy, and a guy that, when healthy at NC State, incredibly productive. Injuries were the only thing that kept him from being a higher pick. Had James Smith Williams not gotten hurt at NC State, he's a guy that ends up going between, I think, rounds 2 and 4 with the skill set that he had, but the injuries were essentially what derailed him. So, that we know at that position behind Chase and Montez right now, there is opportunity to be had.
Well, hey, that's right there. And I like him when he was there at Arkansas State, William Bradley King.
Highly productive player.
Yes. And last question. Washington wins the NFC East if?
Ryan Fitzpatrick plays like he did in Miami last year. He doesn't have to be better than that. He just needs to play like that. I believe he's got better weapons to work with now here in Washington than he even had in Miami. He's going to have a legitimate running game, which is going to, I think, or at least I hope, Scott Turner will be able to keep the number of throws down by 1 to 3 a game compared to the numbers he had to have in Miami last year. To me, with this team, it all comes down to the quarterback play. And as long as Fitz gives you what he did in Miami last year, this team has a chance to compete. I will caution you, though, if you go back and look at the offense that the Dallas Cowboys had rolling when Dak Prescott was healthy last year, you may have to outscore them no matter how good your defense is. Mm-hmm. Those guys are going to be challenged back there to make some plays. And this team's Achilles heel last year was consistently stopping the run. Does Jamin Davis help that considerably? We'll find out. And, that's the one thing that concerns me is because you're going to have to play Zeke twice and you're going to have to play Barkley twice. And they lost twice to the Giants last year, even without Barkley. So, again, the fact that they won the division last year was outstanding. Let's also, in reality, remember they were 7-9, but they were this close to, probably being, 11-5 last year. You could argue over several games. Maybe a couple they won, you could say could have gone the other way. So they were probably closer to maybe 10-6 or 9-7. Than they even were 7-9. So we know the ability is there. As long as they stay healthy, I think they should be competing with the Cowboys for the NFC East championship. But again, that schedule, man, it's going to make them have to be focused, sharp, and healthy this coming season. Because if you take one day off with the schedule they have coming up, and unfortunately that could be the difference between winning the division and being out of the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit it right on the nail here. But Pete, I appreciate you. Y'all go check out
Russell and Medhurst on the Team 980, 3 to 7, the afternoon drive, and with Steve Solomon on there too as a producer. And you can check Pete out on Twitter at Pete Medhurst. And man, and especially that ring, man. That ring that shows the power right there. And
It's our Navy football ring from 2015. One of the 2 seasons where we tied the school record for wins. So.
Hey, man, that's awesome.
Always got to support my mids.
Yeah, that's right. The voice of Navy athletics. So, Pete, again, thank you so much. And y'all, as always, I say on here, love, peace, and hail. And I'll be talking to you real soon. I'm out.